On a snowbound night, 47 men stood outside a mansion in the dark, waiting for a single signal. 2 years of silence, humiliation, and deception had led to exactly this moment. What could make 47 samurai wait that long and never once break? "47 men waited 2 years to avenge their master's death. Not one of them broke. When they finally struck, they turned themselves in immediately afterward. What kind of loyalty survives 2 years of silence?" In 1701, Asano Naganori, the young lord of the Ako domain, traveled to Edo Castle to help host a delegation of imperial envoys, an enormous honor and an enormous responsibility. Court protocol for the ceremony was notoriously complex, and Asano, unfamiliar with its finer details, was assigned a senior shogunate official to guide him through every step: Kira Yoshinaka.
Kira held real power in matters of etiquette, and he expected to be paid for his guidance through gifts, deference, and flattery. Asano, by most accounts a plain and unpolished man, gave too little of all three. Kira responded the only way his position allowed, with mounting public humiliation, correcting Asano's every mistake in front of the entire court. On the 14th day of the 3rd month, inside a corridor of Edo Castle itself, Kira delivered one insult too many. Asano drew his short sword and struck him, wounding him about the face and back before attendants pulled him away. Drawing a blade inside the castle was one of the gravest crimes a samurai could commit, regardless of provocation. The shogun's judgment came the same day. Asano was ordered to commit seppuku immediately, his title stripped, his domain confiscated. Kira, the man who had provoked him for months, received no punishment at all. Convention demanded that both sides of a quarrel be punished equally. In this case, only one side paid anything. Word reached Ako days later, carried by exhausted riders. Their lord was dead. Their domain was gone. And the man who had pushed him to violence walked free. Oishi Kuranosuke, Asano's chief retainer, now led several hundred suddenly masterless samurai who wanted nothing more than immediate, furious revenge. Oishi refused to let them act. An immediate strike would fail. Kira's household would be braced for exactly that. Some of Asano's former retainers gave up and moved on with their lives. Others accused Oishi of cowardice. He said nothing to defend himself. He was already planning something slower and far more dangerous. For nearly 2 years, Oishi lived as a disgraced drunkard in Kyoto's pleasure districts, squandering money, brawling in the streets, apparently abandoning any thought of loyalty or revenge. It was a performance aimed directly at Kira's spies. Every report that reached Kira's household said the same reassuring thing: Asano's men had given up. Kira
was not entirely convinced. He doubled his household guard, moved his sleeping quarters deeper into his mansion, and kept watch for any sign that Akko's scattered samurai were regrouping. But even careful men grow tired of waiting for a danger that never seems to arrive. Over 2 years, his guard inevitably began to relax. On the snowbound night of December 14th, 1702, 47 of Asano's former retainers gathered in the darkness outside Kira's mansion in Edo. Oishi Kuranosuke gave the signal. Nearly 2 years of waiting, deception, and quiet preparation had led to exactly this moment, and there would be no turning back from it. The Ronin stormed the mansion in 2 coordinated groups, overwhelming Kira's guards in the snow-muffled darkness. They had trained for this, planned every entrance and exit, and left strict orders among themselves. Harm no one but Kira and those who directly resisted. Room by room, they searched the mansion for the man they had waited 2 years to find. They found Kira hiding in an outbuilding before dawn. Oishi offered him the chance to die by his own hand, the honorable death Asano had been forced into. Kira said nothing. The Ronin beheaded him themselves, then carried his head across the city to Sengaku-ji temple and laid it on their lord's grave. The debt finally repaid. Rather than flee, all 47 Ronin turned themselves in to the authorities that same morning. They had broken the law in the most public way possible, and they knew exactly what that meant. The shogunate now faced an impossible question. Were these men murderers? Or were they the most loyal samurai Japan had produced in a generation? The debate consumed Edo for weeks. Confucian scholars argued for their execution as common criminals. The law was the law, and premeditated killing could not simply be excused by good intentions. Others argued the opposite, that the original judgment against Asano had been unjust from the start, and the Ronin had merely finished what the shogunate itself had failed to make right. In February 1703, the shogunate reached its compromise. The 47 Ronin would not be executed as criminals. Instead, they were granted the honorable death of seppuku, a punishment, but also, unmistakably, a recognition of exactly what they had done and why. 46 of the 47 died that day and were buried beside Asano Naganori at Sengaku-ji temple, their graves arranged around his in a final act of loyalty. The 47th, a low-ranking Ronin sent away before the raid to carry news of it, lived on and spent the rest of his life visiting his comrades' graves. The story of the 47 Ronin became one of the most retold tales in Japanese history, dramatized on kabuki stages within weeks of the event, and reimagined in theater, film, and print ever since, under the title it is still known by today, Chushingura, the treasury of loyal retainers. What made the story endure was not the violence,
but the patience. 2 years of silence, humiliation, and discipline, absorbed without complaint, in service of a single night. Few stories capture what Bushido claimed to demand of a samurai as precisely as the weight itself.
Next time on Samurai Chronicles, the assassins who supposedly walked through walls vanished in smoke and killed without a trace. Almost none of it is true. This is the real history behind Japan's most misunderstood warriors. Coming next. If the loyalty of the 47 Ronin moved you, subscribe to Samurai Chronicles. New episodes every day. Some debts, it turns out, take exactly as long as they need to.